The Solitaire Series, Episode 8, The Ace of Clubs, by Troy Lambert. Narrated by Troy Lambert. Jack, that's the dude with the messed up face from what Solitaire tried to do to him, right? His real name was Cliff, but he insisted everyone call him Ace. He stood with his back to a huge bank of monitors flanking a large walnut desk, hands clasped behind his back, and stared through a one-way mirror at the bodies writhing, moving apart and together under the laser lights and flashing globes in the club below. A redhead wearing a typical little black dress turned and looked up at the mirror for just a second, hair flipping around her freckled face, and flipped him the bird. "That's him, Ace. Who's the red hat, scarf-wearing asshole? And who let their security man in here?" "Manny did, far as I can tell." Frederick, his head of security, stood much taller than Ace. A former NFL linebacker, he was much wider in the shoulders as well. Still, he seemed cowed as he made his report, and Ace liked that. He thrived on it. The redhead continued to gyrate, rubbing up against a skinny white dude wearing a neck-deep t-shirt under his pimpled face and sporting dark bowl-cut hair. For no reason, he suddenly hated her. Not her specifically, but what she represented. Flipping off a mirror, not knowing what lay behind it, dancing with guys she'd never give a chance in order to get free drinks, and flaunting her flaming beauty to get whatever she wanted. She represented so many things he despised. "Hang on a sec," he said, picking up a radio. "Sal, the gal in the black dress," he said. Below, he saw one of the large bouncers raise his hand to his ear. "Yeah, boss?" "Kick her out." "Are you sure, Ace? She's the daughter—" "I don't give a fuck whose daughter she is. Get her out of here, at least for tonight." "Yes, sir." He saw the bouncer moving towards the girl and turned back to Frederick. "Back to the matter at hand. So Manny let a solitaire man into my club. Why?" "Red Hat is a counter, same as Jack. He thought we might have mutual interest in removing him. You know I like the counters sometimes, right? Everyone loves to follow a winner." "Yes, but—" "Yes, what?" "Yes, Ace. He seems like a pro, though. Does he belong to someone, or is he a freelancer?" "Freelance, as far as we can tell." Ace studied the monitor that showed him a view of the front door. He saw Jack and Red Hat exchange a few words. The man in the hat handed Jack a card, and then Jack left. "Huh," he said, still watching. Behind him, Frederick stayed silent. Ace watched as Jack drove away. Red Hat turned to leave himself. "Stop him and bring him up here," Ace said. "I want to talk to him." "Yes, Ace," Frederick said, and fled the room while talking rapidly into his radio. Ace smiled and waited, watching events unfold in black and white on the tiny monitor in front of him. Burt never made it to his car. In fact, he didn't make it 2 steps before another security guard appeared beside him. "Come with me, sir." "But I'm outside." "It doesn't matter. The boss wants to see you." "If I refuse?" But Burt already knew the answer. If he refused, he would be compelled. If he were compelled, whatever was coming next would certainly be less pleasant. The well-dressed man next to him shrugged his shoulders, and his suit jacket struggled to remain intact. His head was shaved, his chin doubled, but the stretching of the exquisite cloth wasn't due to laziness or to him being overweight. Okay, Burt said. They entered the club again, the music washing over him with thumping rhythm that seemed no different than the first time he'd entered. How long can this song be? He wondered to himself. He wasn't so much pushed towards the set of stairs he hadn't seen the first time he'd entered as much as he was guided. A giant mirror decorated the side of whatever room was at the top, and he glanced at it, imagining who might be watching him from the other side. As they mounted the steps, he spotted 2 other suit-clad security guards escorting a redhead toward the front door. She appeared to be fighting them every step of the way. A matter of seconds later, his escort entered a code, the door opened, and he stepped inside. In front of him were 2 men. The smaller of the 2 stared into a set of monitors, a small smirk on his face. The larger of the 2, a giant of a man with broad shoulders that led to a narrow waist, wore an immaculately tailored suit as near to identical to his escort's as he deemed possible. His dark hair was cut close to his brown scalp, and his eyes narrowed when Burt appeared. Former football star, Burt guessed. Probably NFL. He looked familiar. What do we have here? The shorter man said, turning to look at him. The two were flanked by not only the bank of monitors, but a massive desk, a high-back leather chair behind it, and two shorter ones in front. What appeared to be a mirror from outside was what he'd suspected. A window looking down on the club. The lights and dancers clearly visible, an amusing sight when you couldn't hear the music. Burt stuck out his hand. I'm Burt, and you are? Call me Ace. Burt sucked air between his teeth. You're not... He looked left and right. Solitaire? No, although you could say we share a business model. Good. Some things have happened lately. Burt stopped. Sometimes he wished he had some kind of filter and could just keep his goddamn gums shut. That's a nice hat you got there. Is that part of your shtick? Ace turned towards him, and Burt felt the pressure of his gaze. He glanced at the guard, whose face revealed what he assumed to be relief that someone else was the center of his boss's attention at the moment. My what? Burt answered. You know what I'm talking about, and I know what you are, so the sooner you cut the bullshit, the sooner you can go if I let you go at all. The statement made him shiver. Burt wasn't afraid of Solitaire exactly. He didn't want to cross them, certainly, but he was a careful man. He had been foolish to come in here, to follow Jack, to strain to overhear the password to get into the closed game. Okay, let's say you know who and what I am. What do you want from me? I want to know about your friend. Ace stepped forward, and while Burt felt like stepping back, he knew that would probably be a bad idea. You mean Jack? The mangled piece of shit card counter you were with when you left. He's not my friend, he said, hoping Ace believed him. That didn't seem likely. Tell me what you know. Burt shrugged. Can we sit? Sure. Ace moved around the desk, and Burt let himself fall into one of the chairs in front of it. The giant security guard moved behind him, feet spread, arms folded over his chest. I want to know every detail you know. Don't leave a thing out. He was at a club, Solitaire joint, Burt started. There was some kind of scuffle, and I followed him out of curiosity. He's staying at the Luxor, so I decided to keep an eye on him. He's obviously not from around here. L.A., Ace said. What? He's from fucking L.A. He's got a great place there, all paid for by counting cards and beating the house. He beat Solitaire once too often, or at least we think that's what happened. They've sent a few men after him. Clearly none of them succeeded. How did he get the scars? One of them almost killed him. Solitaire let him heal up, at least as much as he ever will, before trying again. Ouch. So, you really don't know him? No. I offered to throw in with him, work as partners, just now. He turned me down. You're going to keep following him. Ace made it a statement. I wasn't. You're going to keep following him. I'm guessing Solitaire is no fonder of you than they are of him? Not exactly. They kicked me out. If not for whatever he did there, it could have been much worse. But he turned... I heard that part. Frederick, get him a phone. The guard nodded and headed for a cabinet at the far end of the room. When he saw the man in profile, Burt actually did recognize him. Former linebacker, Los Angeles Rams, left the NFL after an injury, he thought. Came out of UCLA, I think. Ace reached into his desk and pulled out a stack of hundreds. He handed them over. This will get you started. Here's the deal. You can come gamble here on Friday nights. Friday nights only. When you reach a cap, my guys will ask you to leave. When they do, you go. Understood. Of course, that is null and void if Jack is somewhere else that night. You keep track of where he goes, with who, and when. You report to me using that phone. My number is the only one in it. You don't use it for anything but to call or text me. Got it? Burt picked up the bills and flipped through the stack. Yeah, got it. You work for me now. No more freelancing. Anything you take, anywhere, including here, you owe me 10%. But you get that every week, he said, indicating the money Burt was counting. That should be enough of a stake to keep you going for a while. What if Jack decides to go back to L.A.? What then? He won't. Not yet. He needs to build his stake again, and he needs to get Solitaire off his back for good. But when he does, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. We have games in California, places where you'd be more than welcome, and Vegas is a short flight. Burt looked at the money again and then the phone. He thought about arguing, saying no, or asking for more. He flipped through the stack again, counting this time. 10 grand on the nose. Don't think about asking for more, Ace said. He stood. If you say no, you'll leave here by a different door than the one you came in, if you understand my meaning. Now get going. Whatever you do, don't lose him. Of course, Burt said. And Burt? Yeah? Lose that fucking suit. Buy yourself something nice and conservative. Try to be a little less noticeable. But that's part of my shtick, as you say. You just changed tactics. Burt took off the top hat and handed it to Frederick. Got it. I'll head to a shop as soon as I check on Jack and make sure he's still sticking around. Good idea. Here's my guy. A card appeared on the table, the name of a tailor and an address. Make sure it fits well. Burt picked it up and stood. He looked around the office. This is quite an operation you have here. Does your organization have a name? Blackjack, Ace told him. At least as far as you know. Now get out. Frederick moved towards him, and Burt resolved to really look him up later and find out his story. Pleasure doing business with you, he said. We'll see, came the response, but Ace had already moved to the window where he stood, watching the club below. Back in the noisy club, his previous escort met him and again guided him through the crowd until they reached the front door. Once outside, Burt saw the redhead from earlier sitting on a bench by the door. Can you help me, mister? She said. I got kicked out, and my friends are still inside, so I don't have a ride. Burt looked at her. Young, white girl, nothing but trouble there. He slid 100 out of his bundle and tossed it her way. Call a cab. He turned away from her and saw his Mustang already waiting in the circular drive. He slid inside, over $15,000 richer between his winnings and his new job. But as he drove towards the Luxor and his room there, he didn't feel good about that at all. He had a feeling he was in more trouble now than he'd ever been. The end. Thanks for listening to the Solitaire Series, Episode 8, The Ace of Clubs, by Troy Lambert, narrated by Troy Lambert. Next in the series, Episode 9, The 5 of Clubs.